Nonsensical disease. In your worksheet or in your workbook, it mentions making sense of nonsensical behavior. After thinking about it some time, I figured I should change the title. It is a disease that we are talking about. Okay. So now, immediately when you think of addiction, what comes to your mind immediately? It could be words, images, whatever that comes to your mind. Wait, whoa. I have only 2 years. One at a time. Raise your hand. Alcohol. Drugs. What else? Facebook. Okay.
Amen.
Law. Thank you. Law. Yes.
I said that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Cell phone.
Cell phone. Okay. Good. Wonderful. We're in a very good shape to talk about this. So when we think of addiction, we have all these images, things that comes to our mind immediately. But at the same time, I must warn you, we also have some biases about addiction when we think about these images that comes to our mind. And I'll clear up what that means, what I actually mean by biases. So when we think of addiction, when one thinks of addiction, these are the images, basically, generally, that comes to mind. Okay? You see prescription medications, marijuana, things that you sniff and you inject. At the same time, we have smoking, drinking. We said love, something attached to love is also physical, type of law, sex, right? Also, we have food, right? When we think of addiction, do we associate addiction with food? Does that happen as well? Yes, right? Food as well. We love to eat, right? Who here doesn't love to eat? Right? Oh, you don't like to eat? So we all love to eat. So when we think of addiction, we have all these images, right? But you know what? Addiction is not restricted to these things. Okay? It's not just restricted to substances such as alcohol, smoking, food, sex, whatever it may be. How many of you guys have seen the show on TLC, My Strange Addictions? Yes, right? My Strange Addictions, and they are very strange addictions. Guys, I think we were a little bit distracted here. We could bring it back to what we're doing here for one moment. Okay. My Strange Addictions. So, what are the strange addictions that show up in this TV show? One person is addicted to sand, eating sand. So, I was watching this show, and this young teenager is explaining how she would eat sand, and the crispiness and the crunchiness of the sand she's addicted to. It's not necessarily the taste. It's that something triggers in her mind about sand, right? Another thing, eating deodorant. Okay, the taste of deodorant is so pleasing to this individual, she enjoys eating deodorant. Drinking and sniffing gasoline. By the way, this is not fiction. This is real. Okay, this is real. Drinking and sniffing gasoline. Drinking human blood, and also eating and drinking human waste. I mean, imagine a person getting pleasure out of drinking urine, eating feces. So this is why I titled this workshop as Making Sense of a Nonsensical Behavior. In other words, how do we make sense of people getting pleasure out of things that we think is disgusting? How? How do we make sense of it? At the same time, we may have individuals in our own life who may be addicted to substances. People who may be drinking. Our friends who may be addicted to marijuana, people who may be addicted to smoking, whatever it may be. So how do you make sense of it? The question immediately comes to mind is, why? Why do they do it? And at the same time, another bias that we have about ourselves is, wait a minute, you know what, Abey George is going to be talking about addiction. I ain't got no problem. He spoke about all these things, all these addictions. I'm not addicted to drinking blood, so, he ain't talking about me. I got nothing to do with this. Well, this is something that I'm going to shed some light about, which is, even though you may not be addicted to a substance or something at your point in your life right now, there may be signs in your life that may lead you to be addicted to something. Okay? I'm not saying that you're all going to be addicted to something. What I'm saying is, there may be some signs in your life, some behaviors, some patterns that you may be seeing in your life that may lead you to becoming an addict. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So with that being said, this is what we're going to figure out. How does our bodies work? You know, what exactly, not only our bodies, our minds, our souls function when it comes to addiction. Just some statistics here. This is a study that was a survey that they took within the past couple of years from 2010. About 1 in 9 youth, or 11.4% of young people aged between 12 to 25 use prescription drugs non-medically within this past year, within 2000. I think study was taken in 2011. Okay, so people who you're going to school with, people who you may be working with, okay, or even kids within our own church. I mean, of course, these are things that does not come out in public, does it? You know, does your friends, walk around with something on their forehead saying, hey, you know what, I'm addicted to prescription drugs? Do they do that? Or do they, talk about how they are struggling with this addiction? No, absolutely not. But this is what the statistics have shown. 25% of those who began using prescription drugs at age 13 or younger met clinical criteria for addiction sometime in their life. Okay? So this is some statistics to show you, all of us, that it affects all of us because it's around us. Okay? It may not affect you individually or personally in your life, but it affects you because you're part of the society. You're part of a social system. You're part of your own school, your friends, your network, right? So it affects us in that way. So these are some statistics. You can look up online about various statistics. There are many, many people that we see often on TV, on media, who have a history or are struggling with addiction. Some names that you identify. Hands, please. Hands, please.
Charlie Sheen.
Okay, Charlie Sheen. Who else? Debbie Moore. Eminem. Lindsay Lohan. Michael Jackson. There's one guy on the corner. Do you guys recognize him? Tom Hardy. Bane. Right? Bane, who recently acted in which movie? Dark Knight Rises, right? Well, he struggled for a long time and continues to struggle. But still, keep in mind, these are quote-unquote successful people, right? They have fame, they have money, they have power, right? But they struggle with addiction. But they struggle in their own personal lives when it comes to addiction. Now, you may think, what is that caused them to be addicted to something when they have everything? Imagine when you have everything that the world could give you, but still having this disease. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? In other words, all the pleasures in the world is not enough. The only pleasures that they are actually seeking is from these substances. Okay? So how do we make sense of that? Okay? So another thing that we have to keep in mind is this, that addiction knows no race, nor creed, nor color, nor age, or even financial status. Right? So it affects all kinds of people all around the world. Now, what exactly happens within our system? So what exactly does these substances do to us in our daily life? One thing that we all have to come to the understanding is that we all human beings are in a quest for meaning. Okay? Our lives, we all desire for a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. There's something that for example, when you wake up in the morning, what drives you to get up in the morning? There's something that drives you, to get up. For example, it could be for married people, for parents, it could be their children. For some, it could be work. For some, it could be church. For some, it could be school, whatever it may be. It's a quest for what? quest for what? Meaning and purpose. Okay? So we all desire, we have that inner, we're programmed in a sense to find meaning within our lives. Now, every person desires to experience to be one with something. Okay? To be one with something else outside of them. Okay? So when a person, for example, so it could be it's a relational. So it's a person who wants to become one with something else. That's what drives them. So they want to invest so much time and energy in work, right? That gives them meaning and purpose. Another person may want to acquire money. Another person may want to acquire wealth. Another person may want to, what's driving them is entertainment. Another person could be religion. But when one fails to have meaning in their life, they end up developing coping behaviors as defense mechanisms. Okay? In other words, there's this big hole within our life because we don't have meaning, and we try to fill it up with things. Does that make sense? So, in other words, for example, when you're hungry, right? When you're really, really hungry, are you going to, be picky when it comes to the food that you choose? No, right? Why do you think the fast food industry makes so much money? Because America knows that America's running all the time. They're hungry, and they're going from one job to the next, to the next, to the next. They'll go for anything. You give them anything, you provide them with anything, they'll fill their stomachs with anything. As long as you provide them with stuff, okay? So same thing in our own life, in our own souls, we are searching for meaning. We're searching for purpose. We're searching to fulfill that desire, right? Now, what happens is when it's not filled, automatically our minds are saying, you know what? I need to create a defense mechanism. I need to fill it up with something else. Hence, we end up filling it up with unhealthy things. Okay? So we end up wanting to be one with chemicals. We end up, becoming one with things that are unhealthy for our lives. So it's that drive for becoming one with something else or someone that's within us that's being fulfilled when a person ends up using substances. Okay? Now, you may ask, is feeling good a bad thing? Is pleasure something bad? Is it bad? No. Feeling good is a good thing. But the problem is in quick fixes. Quick fixes in the sense where instant pleasure. Okay? So now, for example, when you're hungry, right? A chocolate cake looks really, really appetizing, right? But when your stomach is full, right? That desire for that chocolate cake goes down, doesn't it? Right? So it's relative in that sense, right? So the problem is we're so ready for quick fixes. We're not willing to go for about waiting or being patient in terms of getting positive pleasure. We're all about willing to sacrifice whatever that we want for instant pleasure. Okay? So that's what the problem is. And pleasure and love are closely linked. When you're hungry and when you eat something, as much as you feel pleasure, you also feel loved. Right? Why do you think you have created a bond between you and your parents? Because when you were small and tiny, when you were hungry, who fed you? Who fed you? Your parents, right? Your parents. So you felt a sense of pleasure, right? Which is when you were hungry, you were filled. At the same time, along with the pleasure, what's linked? Love, right? So pleasure and love are closely connected. So why do you think there's so many individuals who are addicted to substances? They talk about their bottle or their substance as their own girlfriend, right? Or their love, right? In other words, they feel a sense of fulfillment or oneness with that substance, right? And they love it. It gives them meaning in their lives, okay? So we are all wired to find meaning and purpose in lives through intimacy, okay? So the person who is working 24/7 is becoming intimate with what? With their work. So through that relationship, that person gets meaning. A person who invests a lot of time in the life of Christ.